I had the idea for ChopnBlok. It was January 18th of 2017. I passed by this Italian street kitchen, and when I saw that, I was like, boom, that's what we're gonna go ahead and do, is create the first contemporary West African-inspired food and beverage concept. So when I had the idea, first thing I did, I started working at nights at Chipotle as a prep cook dishwasher to understand what it takes to build a concept that can scale.
Ope Amosu is the founder and CEO of ChopnBlok, a West African fast casual restaurant that's redefining how people experience cultural food. From hosting intimate pop-ups to now running 2 thriving locations, his journey is a masterclass on its own.
People have kind of gotten past the phase of eating for utility. We decide where we want to go based off of how we think we're going to feel, how we're going to be served, how we're gonna soak in the space, the energy that comes with it, and that's where we want to tap into, right? We aren't gonna be that space that has great food and that's all we can lean on. No, we're gonna have great food because that's the ticket to play the game. When I didn't have any experience on the culinary side of things, one of the things I always told myself is, man, but I've been Nigerian my whole life. How can I take the things that characterize us culturally and continue to be up on that? Because one thing you can't really duplicate is authenticity.
How do you scale without losing kind of the heart and soul of what made ChopnBlok special in the first place? This episode is special, not just because of who I'm interviewing, but because of how far back we go. Because before the 2 locations, the media buzz and the long lines at ChopnBlok, I remember Opie inviting me to his private taste tasting dinners. That he was perfecting his recipes, he was taking feedback and quietly building what would become one of Houston's most exciting culinary brands. Ope Amosu is the founder and CEO of ChopnBlok, a West African fast casual restaurant that's redefining how people experience culture through food. From hosting intimate pop-ups to now running 2 thriving locations, his journey is a masterclass in vision, resilience, and staying true to your roots. We're talking about the early hustle, the big bets, the cultural missions behind a brand, and what it really takes to build something from scratch in today's restaurant game. So if you've ever had a dream, this one is definitely gonna hit home. Let's dive in. It's been a true pleasure and honor to watch the growth and watch how far you've come. So let me ask you this, from passion to concept, like what inspired you to build a modern, fast casual West African brand in the US? Like, I remember when I was talking to Marcus from the Breakfast Club one day, and he talked to me about when he was starting the Breakfast Club back then.
Yep.
And he was feeling like a gap in the market. He was saying that there was a limited amount of items like brunch spots and just brunch items in general. And he felt like that was a gap. So what gap were you trying to fill when you were looking into ChopnBlok?
Man, I just got tired of, having to go 45 minutes to an hour outside of my way, regardless of where I was in the world, when I wanted to get access to the culture I grew up on, right? And so the gap for me was just like, our culture is not as accessible as it should be. And honestly, our stories aren't being told by us as much as they should be. And so that's really what I landed on, was like the best way to have a universal canvas that all can understand and appreciate. There's 2 universal languages, good food and good music. Let's bring those together. Idea from ChopnBlok came from there. And then I just couldn't shake it. Just couldn't shake it.
Wow. And because I know you, we go back. You were a student at Rice University.
Yep.
So you did get an MBA from Rice.
Yep.
Would you say that played a role as to where the idea came from, or was this something that was already in your mind before you even took that journey?
No. This was definitely something that came after Rice, but no experience is lost, right? So
Absolutely.
What Rice did for me in terms of kind of shaping the way that I attack and think through business problems is what I carried with me into my first true, official corporate career, which I held on to for about 7 years. As part of that, I was working on ChopnBlok on the side, right? It didn't really come to me until I was in that career that, in the oil and gas industry is supposed to be very glamorous. I was flying and taking assignments, different parts of the world, and, essentially what a lot of people aspire to have and kind of that career path. It just didn't feel like that was it for me, right? And so I think it was just all those life experiences essentially pointed to this vision that we're actualizing today.
Bro, it's crazy, man. You know what? I want to take it back a little bit, bro. Let's take it back, because when you were hosting these private dinners, when ChopnBlok was an idea, was a concept at the time, what was your mindset back then at the time? Did you envision ChopnBlok being what it is right now?
I mean, it's still early. In my mind, it's still early. So I've been very analytical and just been very, very intentional about how we build something that's this precious, right? Because this here represents over 40 million people in this country. And essentially it makes no sense why it's not as accessible as it should be, right? And so with that in mind, I wanted to be able to showcase the beauty of who we are as a diaspora, make it more accessible, build community along the way. And I had to think through what was the right approach to do so. It wasn't where I was just going to leave my corporate career and jump into this full time. Instead, my focus was, let's be super intentional. Let's really study this and let's de-risk it before we put down that big investment. It was essentially what I would do in my corporate roles as well, right? So I had the idea for ChopnBlok. I still remember the date. It was January 18th of 2017. On my way to a business conference, I passed by this Italian street kitchen, and I had already been having ideas in my mind percolating. And when I saw that, I was like, boom, that's what we're gonna go ahead and do, is create the first contemporary West African inspired food and beverage concept that's gonna make our culture more accessible and ultimately share the beauty of our culture in ways that reshape society's daily routine. From that point on, I was off to the races, right? So I had the idea in my mind. I knew that the way I broke into the oil and gas space was essentially leapfrogging because of my experience at Rice. They put me straight into this commercial director in training type role, but I never truly had boots on the ground experience in the oil field. And that was a big gap that I always dealt with as I was ultimately crafting strategy, leading teams. And so I didn't want to have that same miss. So when I had the idea, first thing I did, even before the dinners, TJ, was I started working at nights at Chipotle as a prep cook. As a prep cook dishwasher, to understand what it takes to build a concept that can scale, right? Learning the ins and outs, learning how their operation flows, learning what they went through, so that when I made my own assumptions and built my business case, I was building it on sound principles, right? Sound principles, things I've seen and experienced. And I'm not gonna come in and say, boom, my first location is gonna do $3 million when the Chipotle I was working on was doing $3 million. That didn't really make sense, right? But having that sort of knowledge to know like what a proven concept delivers and what something in my idea could be was the first step. Then I started learning recipes by studying under traditional West African home cooks, because they make the best versions of our food. Taking those recipes, making sure that whatever someone tastes that comes from ChopnBlok is rooted in that foundation, right? And when I was equipped with both of those, that's when we got to March of 2018, when I started doing these dinners, right? And doing these dinners more as a focus group. Because if you remember, you were filling out comment cards. Absolutely. It was a great date night. You know what I mean? Like, it was something that like you only so many people got invited to. We kept it intimate, 20 people in the room at a time. You're eating throughout the entire experience. You're learning more about the culture, learning more about the food, learning more about this concept that's being built or is ideating at the time. And so it was designed to be more of a focus group where we can get true, tangible information back from real diners on what it would take for something like this to be successful. The whole terminology was customer co-creation. How do we create something, not in a vacuum, but create it with the customers to increase the probability of success? A lot of times people say, if something was like this, it should have already happened before. Or, man, I don't know if African food can really, break out the same way that other cuisines have done. And so instead of making it very subjective, let's make it concrete. Let's get true data from live customers that tell you this is a score of a 4.8 out of 5. Let's run that series over and over and over again. Now I'm equipped with data that I can take to banks, I can take to investors, right? I can take and ultimately believe even more behind the product that we're creating and iterate upon it to get it to where it needs to be. That's why the dinners were in place.
Wow. I think that and said what you just said, bro, it's a masterclass on its own. And gathering that kind of data before you actually went to the marketplace, presented yourself, and now you have tangible data to say, hey, look, here's what we know works.
100%.
I think a lot of folks, especially a lot of entrepreneurs, try to put the cart before the horse, for sure. One of the things I'll say about a restaurant in Houston, because you hear about places, what's one of the best places to eat in the city? Like, what's one of the best places to eat, period, in the country? Houston always pops up on that list. It's an amazing place to eat, amazing restaurants. You not only opened up a restaurant in Houston, you opened it up in one of the hardest locations to get into in Houston. We're right here in Montrose. Crazy restaurant district here, a lot of amazing food. What challenges have you found with being able to thrive, especially with this second location, even with the first location, because both locations are in the city? not easy to accomplish here in Houston at all by any feat. What challenges did you say that you saw when in terms of just competition in Houston from the restaurant scene?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't really feel like we have super strong competition.
Wow.
Like, and I don't say that in any other way, but in like true humility, in the sense where we're creating something that should already exist. So we're just putting something out there that like people are just getting turned on to, right? Like, I look at it and I say, I often give the example of like the iPad, right? I remember when the iPad first came out, right? And my first reaction to it is, what do we need this device for? Because I have an iPod to listen to music and iTouch, right? I also have a phone. This iPad, you're telling me, just does the same thing that my other devices do. It's just bigger. What do I need that for, right? And I felt like that was a consensus I heard from a lot of people. But now you fast forward, and it was like the gadget that we never knew we needed, right? Yeah. And so now it's a pivotal part of everyone's tech arsenal. And that's how I viewed the food that I was looking at creating. More importantly, the culture I was looking at representing, right? There's so many underlying components that fall back on who we are as a Black, as an African diaspora, but it doesn't get its shine, right? It doesn't get its representation. And so for me, I was convinced that when you put this out there, the people who come from where we come from are gonna get it immediately, right? Because we've been looking for this, like either innately or like very intentionally. We've been looking for this type of a space, right? But I knew once it was out there and people got to touch it, got to understand it, got to connect with it, they're wondering why it speaks so much to them. It's because it's where we all come from. You know what I'm saying? And so when you fast forward to like how we were able to, or how we are able to continue to succeed in very competitive spaces in town, I think it's more, again, just us being able to take that gap in representation and put it next to other restaurants where people are already programmed to go and eat, going programmed to go have great experiences. So Montrose makes sense, right? Restaurant Row, we on West Time, Lower West Time, right? People are already programming their mind like, oh, I'm going out tonight. Where can I think of? Oh, there's, this spot across the street. There's this down the street. Oh yeah, ChopnBlok's there too. I'm going to ChopnBlok. We just now at the table. You get what I'm saying? Same with the Post, right? Especially when that first opened, right? I knew, one, I was tired of going through life, going into spaces like that, expecting myself to not be represented, right? And so all these people going in there ready to, experience the culture of Houston, right? As Post is meant to be a cultural hub. Well, no, we're gonna be there front and center, right? And we're gonna show up and we're gonna represent. And that's why I don't really see things as competition, because I don't think a lot of people see us as competition. It's just that we're kind of playing in this kind of blue ocean space right now, right? And we're in an industry where, look, usually they say people eat 3 square meals a day, right? There's got to be space for somebody to come over and pull up, right? And I only need so many people because I can only seat so many people in this space. And that's just how we keep that journey going, man. So yeah, it's been more flattering to be able to open up in these spaces than it's been any form of like, anxiety or any fear. I think our biggest challenges are more internally, right? We are our biggest competition. And that comes from understanding like how we dial in our operations, how we transition what we do at Post more as a short form takeout fast casual spot to what we do here at Montrose as a full service, sit down, dine in restaurant that has a wider menu that, essentially delivers various different types of experiences. That's been where I'd say like our biggest, growing pains have been so far.
Wow. Well, listen, the brand is serious. ChopnBlok, just even everything about the brand. And I can tell you, building a brand is not just a menu. For y'all, it's not just a menu. ChopnBlok isn't just a restaurant. It is a cultural experience, for 100%. Sure. What are kind of some intentional things? Can you recall any intentional things that you did to make sure that the brand kind of stays foolproof, that it stood out more than just food?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything, right? It's like, I think the very first thing I said I had to hold on to breaking into this industry was my experience outside of the industry, right? Be it as a diner, be it as an outsider, right? Like, what are some of the things that I wanted my naivete to be able to, give me the belief that I can just come in here and figure it out, right? And so when it comes to the space, I said, you know what, well, people have kind of gotten past the phase of eating for utility. We don't just go out to eat just simply because we want that nourishment. A lot of times we go out to eat for experiences, right? We decide where we want to go based off of how we think we're going to feel, how we're going to be served, how we're gonna soak in the space, the energy that comes with it, and that's where we want to tap into, right? We aren't gonna be that space that has great food and that's all we can lean on. No, we're gonna have great food because that's the ticket to play the game, but then we're also gonna go ahead and appeal to all the other senses, right? So if you come into our Montrose location, even our Post location, right? Go into the Post location, that space stands out. In the entire food hall, that space stands out. You feel the diaspora as soon as you walk in. It's like the ancestors are telling you welcome home, right? And that's the same thing here. Very intentional who we work with as well, celebrating the other businesses, because when I say this is a community space, that's how we're truly designing it. So, you have representation in terms of like the books and stories and so on that we have scattered through in the restaurant, right? It's a partnership between us and Kindred Stories and Third Ward, right? Vinyls on the wall, like celebrating Houston with Solange right next to Ashake, you know what I'm saying? Like, just again, speaking to that, being very intentional about when you come in here, where the lighting hits, right? Like we want you to see front and proper that the diaspora is here on full display, and all of that is what you're taking in as you're consuming some top tier cuisine at the same time.
Listen, top tier cuisine is right. Listen, we're looking at, I don't know if y'all can see this crazy spread. The food here is incredible, bro. And one of the things that, of course, a lot of this just happens in restaurant business a lot. And as you scale, a lot of times the soul and the culture and that, the soul of what made the food what it is kind of tends to dim down a little bit. Now you guys have 2 locations. How do you scale without losing kind of the heart and soul of what made ChopnBlok special in the first place?
Yeah, I think it gets more difficult from 2 to 3, from 3 to 4, right? I think we also still have to do the basics correctly, right? The food needs to be able to deliver, and it needs to be consistent. Consistency is key, right? So making sure that we're super dialed in when it comes to the operational side of how we execute our restaurants is super important, right? So we're continuing to dial in that component because we do have big dreams for what we want to do here. Secondly is not being apologetic about our identity and making sure that we deliver that with quality, right? And so the thing about me, man, is when I didn't have any experience, on the culinary side of things, one of the things I always told myself is, man, but I've been Nigerian my whole life. Like, this is my lived experience my whole life, right? Don't lose touch on that. Because one thing you can't really duplicate is authenticity. You know what I mean? And so those are the things that I always want to make sure I lean in on, right? Like, how can I take the things that characterize us culturally and continue to be up on that? You come in here, you're gonna hear music that's current now. You're also gonna hear, some of the stuff that we used to go in on back in the day. But at the same time too, we didn't only listen to Afrobeats, African music. We was listening to the radio, we're doing all of that, right? So making sure that that story continues to connect at that level, right? And so it really is just knowing who you are and standing 10 toes down on that, delivering on that consistently, not confusing the guest on who we are. And as long as we can continue to do that and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, I think that's the path where we're gonna take so that we can stay genuine, authentic, and be seen that way, in front of our diners.
Wow, love that. Now, you could be real with your boy. Was there ever a time in this process, was there ever a time where you seriously doubted the vision of ChopnBlok?
No. I've never doubted the vision of ChopnBlok. I've had experiences where I'm like, man, why am I the one they put this on? Right. Because it can be heavy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
I'm not saying this in the sense of like overconfidence. It's just I'm very, very, very compelled and believe that this is needed and this will succeed. Period. Right? Period. That's why I made the sacrifices I made. That's why my family went through the things we go through to make this happen. Because I firmly believe that what God has put on my heart to do is not going to be left for none, right? And so I know it's going to be successful, but there are plenty of times where I've had to look myself in the mirror and be like, man, this is a lot. This is a lot. Like, I need that energy, that motivation to keep it going,
Yeah.
because this is a very, very strong purpose-driven business. And although I know it's going to succeed, man, why they had to call me for it? You know, so that's been more the experience.
Man, I tell you, you just watching y'all's growth all this time. For me, even if I were to answer the question, it don't seem like you ever had doubters to it, but I can also imagine the challenges that you probably had to go through to even get to where you guys are right now. Now, when it comes to like standing out, like because there's a lot of people that would love to open up a restaurant, that would love to have something that's successful. Which, by the way, I want to ask you this too, because they always talk about margins in restaurants.
Yeah.
Are margins really that thin?
For some. I think you have to learn how to run a sustainable business, right? That's the best thing you can do. Is how you run a sustainable business that has the opportunity to fight another day, right? How do you make sound decisions that allow you to create a business strategy that can last, right? So yes, I think for some, I know for some, the margins are thin, especially when you might not prioritize some of the things that you need to prioritize in a business. The whole de-risking it, right, is I don't feel like this is the path that the majority of restaurateurs take, what we took, right? Like I talked about all the data, all the information we were gathering, but what I didn't hit on is, man, we were building a following before we even opened. You know what I mean? If I could tell you, hey, you want to go open this, do it off of a dream or do it off of a big customer book, what would you take?
A big customer book.
Exactly, right? So we had people at the door ready. We had orders already placed before opening, right? And so building on top of that, but also understanding, like I sat down with one of my advisors even early on in this vision, because I was thinking the same thing. Like they talk about restaurants so risky. Is this like a wise decision to even pursue this industry? And the advice I got from him is no different than any other thing. You just need to know how to maximize your widget. Wow. How do you maximize your chicken, right? How do you price it in such a way where your output oversees your inputs? And how do you do that consistently? And how do you deliver on that and don't leak costs too much, right? How do you also take into account contingencies that allow you to have a buffer? Because I know there's stuff that I'm not going to ever see that's happening in my kitchen, because I can't be at the kitchen every single time. Same in the front of house. Can I run a sound business that can thrive or survive even amongst those? And I think the ones that dial it way too thin, that's when they start to run into those challenges, because they're not built for those sorts of things, right? So yeah, it is for some. We've been fortunate to where we've been able to really craft a strong business that continues to help us push this thing more and more.
Wow. So, and you can divulge and share as much as you're comfortable, but for folks who are listening, for folks who actually have a dream or goal similar to yours, how were you able to get that first brick and mortar funded?
Yeah. So, for the first one, I was very, and I talked about this in those dinners, right? A lot goes back to those dinners. Because you remember, we would eat, and then when it came to dessert time, we sat down.
Yep.
All 20 of us at this big couch.
Yep.
And I sat there in front of everybody and I started asking y'all questions. And one of the questions I had, which also was one on the card, was where should we build our first location and why, right? And I also asked you stuff like, well, where do you go eat? How often do you go eat in this area? So on and so forth. But a lot of people were thinking that the question was more about like a true brick and mortar. I had already been doing my research. I knew that there was this whole food hall boom that was coming into Houston. Houston was at the point where they already had plans to build, it was like 5 or 6 different food halls. Mm-hmm. I've lived in other parts of the world, especially like even in the Northeast, where food halls are way more common, right? They're already further along on that. So imagine like being exposed to food trucks before food trucks made it out here, right? So now it's like, that's how it was with food halls. So I saw them coming and I knew that would be the next step. The dinners were once every how often, right? I needed something that could work on a day-to-day basis. A food hall was great because a food hall was a very, very low capital outlay, right? The food hall developer pays for the build out, right? all I had to do was be able to have true operational capital as well as anything I want to do to make the space look like our own, right? Essentially, because restaurants are a very quick cash flow business, right? You're not necessarily waiting on someone net 30 to write you a check for that dish they just ate. They paying you on the spot, right? It's a lot of churn. I knew that I didn't need a lot of money. So what I did was I went and I raised a little less than $500,000 on what's called convertible debt. Convertible debt or convertible note is usually a tech startup instrument where supporters, right, who end up being your investors or note holders, believe in a concept that someone's creating, but we all mutually agree that it's too early to decide on what the value is because it hasn't been proven quite yet.
Right.
So instead, I'm going to front you some money to go and build it out, but in turn, I'm going to get interest on that money I fronted you. And then when you do go and raise an actual priced round, I get a discount on how much the value of the company is because I've been in with you since the jump. So we raised about $500,000 doing that vessel. We didn't really have to deploy much of that into our first location. That essentially kind of sat on the books, plus the cash flow that we generated from the first location, which gave us a compelling balance sheet and income statement to present to the bank to get the major financing we got through SBA to build out this one in Montrose.
Wow, amazing. Now, let me ask you this, man, because I know you mentioned it earlier. This is kind of still just the beginning.
Oh yeah.
But you came so far. I still remember those days. And you touched on the day in 2017 to be specific. What would you wish you knew if you can go back and talk to yourself during those early days, even those private dinner days? Is there anything that you would tell that younger Opie that would be an impact to this moment now?
Man, it's a very good question, bro. Like I think there's been a lot of just various different life experiences I picked up through this journey for sure. But I've been thinking long and hard about it, and I feel like it's just playing out the way that it needs to play out. It's probably information I could have gotten to make the business decisions faster. There's probably, be it contractors or whatnot that I would like, man, maybe I shouldn't have used this person, right? But those are all like learning lessons, right? I feel like a lot of it, they just kind of build further character. I remember like experiences I've had where I've taken on back in the day, opportunities where I'm cooking for 300, 400 people by myself, right? By myself, right? Of course, things are going to hit the fan, right? But I truly feel like a lot of those experiences is really like what you have to go through to make you built for what you also experience on a day-to-day in this industry, right? And so, yeah, I don't know that there's much like that. I'm like, this is definitely the thing I wish I knew back then. I feel like, God's just revealing things as he should when it's time.
Listen, was there ever, is there anything divine? Was there any divine intervention that ever hit you? Was there any radical moment spiritually that solidified your move in the direction that you were going in?
100%. I remember this clearly, okay? So I have this vision. It's early 2017. This is around when I'm still like figuring out what this concept or I wouldn't even call it a concept, what this idea needed to look like and how I'm going to approach it. I'm dealing with imposter syndrome of I want to go build this, but I don't really have the skill set or the background to do it. I'm doing the Chipotle thing or getting ready to apply. I don't think I had started working at Chipotle at the time yet. And I went to church, right? When you are in church and you feel like the sermon is speaking right to you, right? It was one of those types of experiences. But it was interesting because I go to church and it's not the main pastor, it's a guest pastor. It's a guest pastor in there. He starts preaching from the book of Jeremiah. My favorite verse is now Jeremiah 1:5, right? For I know the plans I had for you. You know what I'm saying? Amen. And so he's preaching this, and I'm like, man, this man is speaking to me. He's speaking to me. And then when they say, and to you, the one who has his dream on your heart, you go do it. If it's a business, I didn't hear the rest. I'm like, oh, that's me. That's me, right? But the one thing that I knew just topped it all off, and he said, and if you are thinking that you're not equipped to do this, you have to remember, God does not call the equipped. He equipped those who he calls. I said, amen. That's
Done
it.
and done.
I said, you know what? If I do not do this today,
Wow.
it is purely an act of disobedience.
Wow.
And there is no way I'm going to walk through this thinking that it's going to fail, because it's already written and I'm just supposed to move in obedience, and whatever happens is going to happen.
Wow.
That was it.
Wow.
That was it.
Wow. Listen, that if I don't do it, it'd be pure disobedience.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love that.
Go ahead and cash that one in.
Before we depart, bro, the future of ChopnBlok.
Yeah.
Right now, we're sitting here in an amazing location right here in the heart of the city. What's the long-term vision for ChopnBlok? Like, do you see expansions into other cities, franchises, or even a product line, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to be very, very honest, right, I don't really speak on this a lot.
Gotcha.
But the truth is, like, I feel like if I were to pass today, God forbid, I'm not empty, right? Like, the vision that's been put on my heart, it's flattering to see that this space has been built. And what's even more flattering is just that it's doing what it needs to do. Like, I'm happy for us. Like, I walk in here and I'm like, I'm happy that we, not me, that we, my people, my community, right? The community that we're continuing to build along the way, right, has this, right? They understand it. It's translating, right? It's reassurance that we're on the right path, right? These locations are meant to be community hubs all throughout the city and beyond. So yes, naturally, I do want to create more, right? It's on my heart. I have a number on how many we're gonna make, right? But ChopnBlok is not, in my mind, I don't see it as a restaurant. It's a mission-driven concept, and so we're on our mission. Restaurants, how we engage with people on a day-to-day basis. Pull up, tap into the culture, tap into the community that's there. We've done awesome things in the community as well, be it, introducing West African food as the first time in a professional sports stadium with the partnership we have with the Houston Rockets, our Chopped and Stew Festival, right? Those are ways that we engage by going inside of the community, bringing jollof into the boardroom, catering, all of those types of things. That is bound to continue, right? I do have dreams and visions for creating a brand that can create enough pull on grocery store and retail outlets that if we do strike partnerships with some of these outlets, we put something on the shelf, are people gonna go out there and go get it, right? That's something else that we're looking at doing. I think one thing I don't talk about enough is the philanthropic component of why we do what we do. And it's near and dear to me. It's called FELA. FELA is my dad's name. But FELA also stands for Finance and Entrepreneurship Literacy Academy, right? How do we take what we do on a day-to-day basis to truly create something for good and create opportunity for those behind us, right? And so with that, it is having the resources to be able to now pour in to that next generation, equipping them with understanding of both finance and leadership and entrepreneurship, things that I feel like have served me well and gotten me into this arena so they can go and create what it is that they want to go ahead and create, right? All of that is ChopnBlok. And so when I look at it, I'm very, very grateful for what we've done so far and what we have accomplished in relatively short amount of time. But I felt all of the days and hours that it's taken to get here, and I know there's so much more that we are going to do. So it's still early days. It's still early days. The vision is big, so we need everybody to pour into it because that's the only way we get from point A to point B and beyond.
I think I speak for everybody when I say that. Listen, we are tapped in, bro. We are tapped in, brother. I am honored to have been a part of the story even from the very beginning. Truly, truly honored to have been a part of this, brother. And thank you for your time and not only telling your story, but literally giving the folks and letting them understand, like, look, here's what's possible when you have a vision and with consistency and execution. Brother, we are extremely proud of you, bro. Can't wait to see where we go, brother. Listen, tap in with ChopnBlok. Right here in H-Town, Texas, man. Thank you so much,
man. Look, I get inspiration and motivation from people like you too, brother. So thank you for having me, man. Hey, on to the next one.
On to the next one. Appreciate it, man.